My thought on it is that I think what happened was when they won the championship last year, Calvin Booth went to ownership and said, we want to keep these 5 guys together. Whether it was 2 years ago when they acquired KCP or it was this last year, and ownership said, okay, cool, you can keep these 5 guys together. We'll pay whatever we need to pay, but you have to kill the draft because we're not spending any extra money beyond Jokic's max, Murray's max, MPJ's max, and then like reasonable contracts for KCP and Aaron Gordon. And what Booth did was he sent out future picks and took gambles on late first and early seconds that he got from OKC. And one turned out to be Peyton Watson 2 years ago, which looks like it's a hit. Like, I think Peyton Watson's going to be a guy for sure. I think that was a smart move on their part, buying low on a guy that totally sucked in college and was just like a tools pick, whatever. He's still probably 2 or 3 years away from being like a real impact player, but he's good. And then the other guys they took were Julian Strother, who I liked in the draft, but I always thought that he was going to take a little bit of time because he's a shooter who they generally don't pop until like they're in their like mid-20s. And then they also took Jalen Pickett and Hunter Tyson, who are probably just not NBA players. And then they also extended Zeke Naji and were like bragging about it to Woj. Like, well, basically what I'm trying to get at here is that it's incredibly hard to sustain any sort of like run in this modern NBA, as we've talked about. And their strategy, which some people say it's 2 timelines, I think it's more cheap ownership. Their strategy is just a very hard needle to thread when the starting lineup wasn't dominating in the way that it was last year. They lost their minutes in the Wolves series, and then they lost multiple rotation players from that championship team. They tried to replace them with young guys that are making very little money, and they tried that strategy, and it didn't work out this year. I think maybe in the next year or two, 1 or 2 of those guys pops, and sure, maybe they can kind of fill in the gaps. But I think a lot of this just basically came down to like thinking that they were light years ahead, and really like they say it's like a rebuilding, taking a step back year or whatever, a reset year, which is like, you have the best player in the league playing at his peak. Why would you ever do that in the middle of his thing? But the reality is they can't trade 2 firsts for Alex Caruso or whoever, because ownership's just never going to extend him a year from now if they're paying all these other guys.
Yeah. I agree. I think it reeks of ownership, honestly, more than like hubris. Because you got to remember when they were doing the 2 timelines thing with the Warriors, they were also like paying the most anyone's ever paid in luxury tax
ever.
So, so you can't really do that versus like this just kind of reeks of ownership going, oh, that's cool that we won the championship. I'm still not fucking paying, but that's awesome though. Thank you. I honestly, I think because everyone was talking about how weird it was that Tim Conley left, and I know that he got stake in the Wolves and everything like that, but I think that also might have something to do with Tim Conley leaving, like where he was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to look stupid if I stay here because the owners aren't working with me. So,
yeah. So I guess my question for you is, what do they do this offseason with this? Like, do they try to trade Michael Porter Jr.?
That's like the obvious one. Cause he's the by far the least bang for your buck. Like he is
Gordon's a great value deal. Even if Gordon struggled a little bit at times in this series, he was also great at times too.
It's pretty easy to get like 80% of what Michael Porter Jr. brings you for like a quarter of what you pay him. So now the problem is, how do you get value for Michael Porter Jr.? And that's a much harder thing to do, because not a lot of people need that archetype of player. And you're not going to get a very good return for Michael Porter Jr. And if you're not going to get a very good return, it's got to be the right trade. Somebody's got to have a guy that is exactly what you want, who's worse than Michael Porter Jr., but cheaper, but enough worse that you can kind of take some of those resources that now that it's cheaper and like make your rotation like a little bit less of a disaster. Like get a solid 7th or 8th guy who can like really kind of help them. I don't know what that move like would look like.
It's really hard to find trades for him. He makes $38 million. Like, he's better than Tobias, but there's potential for that contract to become a Tobias contract. And he's still in the middle of it too. It's not like this is the end of the deal. Like, he's got multiple years left on the deal. I think at this point it would be selling very low on him after the playoffs that he had too.
Yeah.
My gut tells me that they just run this thing back, hope that one or two of those young guys pop. It helps a little bit. Murray's a little bit healthier for next year, and they're right back in the thick of things. They have Jokic. It could totally happen.
Yeah.
The question for me becomes more interesting if someone throws a bag at KCP. What if the Sixers or the Magic or the Spurs throw $23 million a year at KCP?
I think somebody will. He's a winning player. He's been on 2 different championship teams as a starter. Like, he's a proven guy that, like, helps some of that. Like, I don't know. The Sixers could certainly use a guy like KCP,
sure,
depending on what they do with their cap space. Like,
that's like the backup plan, I think, to throw like inflated bags at guys like him, like what the Pacers did with Bruce Brown.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But I think that that's still an option.
Yeah, no, and somebody could definitely do that. I mean, I think here's my thing. I think it's pretty defensible actually to run it back. Because you were betting so much on young guys, and those guys are probably going to be better. Honestly, the Nuggets have a chance to win the title if they can somehow avoid the Wolves. Yeah. We said it. Part of the reason I was able to predict that was because it was just clear that was the team that was the worst matchup for them.
Sure.
like they ran into the team that was the worst matchup for them.
The Wolves. I mean, they were winning by a lot in this. I mean, it looked like they had figured it out halfway through the year or the series.
Yeah. Like you know, there's some different ways that this series goes. I think the Wolves, you know, the Wolves' point differential was what it was in that series, though. Like, you know, so like they won the close games. But yeah, I mean, like if Jamal Murray has like more of a normal series instead of being pretty bad most of the series, like I think it's pretty defensible to run that back. I still think the Nuggets are championship caliber, even if they don't do anything. But you can't lose KCP.
How much do they pay? That's the thing. Is like, yes, I agree. They should run it back. Like, if I were in charge of the Nuggets, I would be like, we're running this shit back.
Yeah.
The issue becomes, how much are they willing to go into the tax? Because right now, next year, Jokic makes 51, Jamal makes 36, Porter Jr. makes 35, Gordon makes 23, KCP has a player option for 15. He'll certainly opt out of that. And I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers right now. If they're just to run it back without a KCP raise, they're at $190 million.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that much fucking money.
They signed Zeke Naji to an extension that we all didn't understand. $8 million per year. This is like, everyone, just run it back. Bro, what if they have to pay KCP $20 million a year? They're going $200 million into the... I don't think they have the stones for that.
I mean, Kroenke is very rich, but he's cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that like his whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, isn't he like scamming people in the cable industry too?
Yeah. Yeah. Like he's not in it to win it. You know what I'm saying? Like he basically stole the Rams from St. Louis. Like,
I remember that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm looking at this. That's why I think they did the draft strategy, because between Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Jalen Pickett, and Hunter Tyson, they're making like the least amount of money possible for a bench. But like now with that Zeke Naji extension, Reggie Jackson has a $5.2 million player option. You can say it if you want.
Yeah, I'll do the Rusilla. Yeah, I think he's going to be picking that one up.
I think he'll be picking that up.
Yeah.
And then like I said, what if KCP gets $23 million a year from the Sixers and he makes $15 million? So that literally takes you up to almost at $200 million on your payroll. You can't move Zeke Naji. Like, I think Michael Porter Jr. being traded and for salary relief is way more possible.
Your second apron at that point, by the way.
You basically can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's hard to aggregate salary. It's hard to, you don't have an MLE.
You start losing picks if you stay there for 3 years, and they probably will stay there for 3 years because Jokic is going to be that good for that long. So,
and also, by the way, Jamal Murray is also up for an insane extension. How are we sure Jamal Murray's worth it? Like, I mean, Jamal Murray's a very good player, but he's also like
he's very
30 guy that's going to make $60 million a year. Like,
he's very lucky Michael Porter Jr. is also on the team, so everyone's pointing at him instead of Murray. Yes.
Yeah.
So
he struggled a lot in the playoffs, and like honestly, they have some decisions to make.
Yeah.
They have some decisions to make. I think if I'm just guessing right now, I think they want to run it back. I think it's more likely that this is just general prediction here. I think it's more likely that they find a way to save money on a Michael Porter Jr. trade, and then they give KCP whatever he wants. And then you look at a situation where, like you said, they could try to replace that value. Before I looked at their thing here, I was like, oh, just run it back. And now I'm like, that's a lot of fucking money for this team.
What if it's just something as simple as like Michael Porter Jr. dump to the Spurs with their first round pick?
Do the Nuggets have their first round pick? I don't think they do. Do they?
I think they do. 28. Yeah, I think they have.
Oh, right, because I don't want them to get Day'Ron Holmes.
Yeah.
He would be so perfect for them if he fell to the end of the first.
Yeah. Oh, man. God, then you could definitely move.
Yeah, because I think that he would fit great on that team.
Everyone fits well next to Jokic.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah. But that's it's an interesting thought. I mean, I think the Spurs, from everything I've heard, the Spurs want to be very patient with their rebuild. Very patient. But Nate said MPJ for Keldon.
Pretty interesting. I think a young team that's like trying to, honestly, you know what? Nobody yell at me. I don't hate that for the Pistons either.
Pistons or the Spurs?
The Pistons for Michael Porter Jr.
Oh, no, actually, that makes some sense.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of like that for the Pistons, to be honest. But
everyone will get mad. The Pistons have no fucking talent. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They can't be picky. Like, Michael Porter Jr. is at least giving you legit spacing from the 4 position and rebounding, which I think that it actually makes kind of sense.
I think it would really help them and their young guys. Like,
who do they trade, though? They don't have anyone to trade.
Beef stew and some shit. Like beef stew and Jaden Ivey, maybe. I mean, I don't know if you want to give up on Jaden Ivey.
I don't. I also don't know if the Nuggets would care about getting Jaden Ivey. Look, Jaden Ivey's kind of at the point where I don't know if he has any trade value. Like, I know it seems insane to say because he's only going into year 3, but like for what he has done in the NBA, I don't really like. I think Duren probably has more trade value than him.
Yeah,
and I don't think that. I just don't think that is. Oh my God, Tim Conley drafted MPJ. If he takes the job with the Pistons because they offer him $15 million.
I like that, and I don't think you need to add a ton of value as the Pistons because it's a contract. It's salary dump. Like,
interesting.
Beef stew, like. He's a 36. Like he's not a good 3-point shooter, but he is a.
He would be interesting on Denver.
He's a Grant Williams 3-point shooter. You know,
I would be interested to see how he looks in that context.
Yeah, like, and I don't like. I think that's a fine. I don't know. I think that's an interesting one.
If they're analytics nerds, and Beef Stew's analytics are always better than the eye test.
Yeah.
Like, I watch Beef Stew and I'm like, he's whatever. And then like analytics are like, no, he's pretty good. And I'm like, all right, maybe he's doing something that I feel like bigs that can shoot and survive on defense always have good analytics.
Yeah.
Like, that's just kind of always the case with that archetype of player. But all right, let's put a pin in that. Let's come back. Yeah. I actually am interested in the Michael Porter Jr. What if they offered the 5th pick in the draft? I mean, they want to win. I'm just saying.
I don't think it would take that. I really don't. I think Michael Porter Jr., they don't have a ton of options. That's why I said the Spurs, because there's like not a ton of teams that have like cap space. And I don't think your Sixers are going to just take Michael Porter Jr.
I don't think they would take them. After the Tobias deal, I think they're a little scarred. Like, I think even if they traded for Brandon Ingram, they would try to get Brandon Ingram on like $25 million a year. Like that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh, I'm like, no, he wouldn't make as much as Tobias made. And if he did, I don't think the Sixers would be interested. So